Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and today in this video I take you on a journey through the lore and history of Oathsworn into the Deepwood. I hope this enhances your planned journey into the Deepwood or helps to soothe those currently lost within the Deepwood's darkness. Without further ado, let's begin. Not all is lost. No one remembers the time before. The Deepwood has consumed the land, an endless sea of corruption. The trees stretch as far as anyone has ever dared venture. A fetid mass of roots and rot, its coming spelled doom for civilization. Even those that took shelter behind city walls were not immune to its effects. As iron and rock were slowly consumed, neither fire nor axe could fully stop the Deepwood's growth. Some cities fell to the corruption, others fought valiant last stands, and some fell to cannibalism as the food supplies ran out. Whatever they did, the people's fate was to be the same: death. Hope was not utterly lost, however. During those dark days, a handful of settlements survived. They clung onto survival by a nail's width, discovering almost too late that salt and salt alone could halt the expanse of the trees, at least for a time. Wringing their cities in salt, humans cursed the ground to stop the tide. This bought them time to fight. As the Deepwood clothed the land in its death shroud, once great civilizations were erased from existence. For those that endure, life is now a constant struggle for survival, an endless war against the encroaching trees and the beasts that emerge from their shadow. Those that survived the earliest days of the Deepwood's advance were cut off from one another and forced to survive alone before attempts were made to re-establish contact. The bones of long-forgotten towns and kingdoms litter the Deepwood. There is no telling how many relics or buried secrets lie beneath the fetid woods. Travel beyond the city walls is rare and dangerous. The Deepwood brooks no intrusion into its domain and reacts to the presence of any large group. Once the bravest or most foolhardy step foot beneath the canopy, those that do become almost immediately lost as they are greeted by an endlessly repeating vision of sickly tree trunks and limbs that block out the sky. Navigation through the landscape by sight or memory alone is all but impossible. In order to provide any hope of travel or commerce, a network of cable pathways was established called the wire roads. Running through steel-eye bolts driven deep into the trees, its thick iron cables led along old, forgotten pathways between the settlements and other important locations. Over the centuries, several attempts were made to push back the Deepwood to form more permanent routes. The greatest of these was a colossal construction effort known as the King's Road. Stretching from Vernum to Cistercia, the massive stone roadway was paved at the cost of many lives. For a short time, trade was reopened, allowing merchants to once again flow between the cities with some speed. This was not to last, however. The road became impossible to maintain as the Deepwood rose once again to devour all that had been achieved. Today, the once marvelous route is nothing more than another forgotten victim of the cursed woods, its huge stone slabs now just gravestones to mankind's hope of reclaiming what the Deepwood has taken. Dare to peer over the walls of any city, and all you will see is the endless sea of the Deepwood. Its darkness obscures all, it swallows hope with its immensity, and even history itself was lost under its canopy. The tortured limbs of Icarus trees reach out for you on that wall, and few can bear to look into its depths for long for fear something will be looking back. Where did the Deepwood come from? No one knows. That knowledge was lost as surely as whatever life came before. What is known is that it is as varied as it is deadly, and all manner of life oozes forth from it. Poisonous vines, pestilent cysts, toxic pools, and grasping roots. The trees did not burn and are a devil to cut, but that has not stopped people trying. Great crusades have been waged only to be repelled by the wood, and only a smattering of settlements have ever been successfully planted in its shadows. Those that do count their blessings and pray daily to be protected from the things that stalk beneath the trees. Why would anyone want to go out into the Deepwood? The King's decree. Life in the cities is a bleak existence, and starvation and disease is rife. With no farms or fields to feed the populace, food is always in short supply, and only what can be brought up from the underways must suffice. In the face of overpopulation and starvation, the crown promised that whoever can go into the Deepwood and take the land can keep the land. And so, in every generation, there are those that gather at the city gates in groups, sometimes several hundred strong, ready to go out and claim a parcel of land for their very own. Lured by the promise of some rations and clinging to the dream of a better life, they head out into the dark. Perhaps it will be hours or days, perhaps it will be months or even years, but the vast majority of these hastily erected homesteads do not survive. Be it by beast or pox or winter's gnawing cold, many in the cities would think these prospectors' fates are sealed. Perhaps they're right, but for that brief time, they're free. There are more than witches to fear. Vernum is the largest surviving human society and the kingdom's capital. It boasts high walls and architecture spanning a millennia of building work to cope with the city's burgeoning population. Trade is one of the fundamental mechanisms that girds society. Life in the great cities is a pressure cooker of humanity, a rolling tide of bodies pressing into every available space. What keeps this pressure from exploding? The free companies do their part by fending off what comes from beyond the walls, and the watch curtails the worst of what comes from within, but it is the flow of iron that truly holds it all together. The coming of the Deepwood took far more than land and lives. It unwound the very marrow of civilization itself. Law became meaningless, and destruction, looting, and revolts blossomed like cancers across the known world. Ancient institutions fell, and noble families were upended in days, causing centuries of lore and knowledge to be lost in the death throes of the old world. Great cities collapsed under the weight of the endless tide of refugees, and the Dark Age rose to envelop everything. Few cities survived that decimation, and those that did so under extreme measures. Each city was permanently changed by the steps it took to secure that survival, but one thing is common across them all: they stayed alive because they kept their economy alive. Be it by purges, rationing, conscription, or forced labor, the cities kept people working and kept the basic value systems of trade going so that some semblance of society could be clung to. In the beginning, the old world currencies were enough to transmit that value system, but as the population grew and more currency was lost into the Deepwood, reality began to dawn on the nobility. There was no replacement for what was lost, and increasingly not enough to support citywide trade. The old mines for the precious materials were long lost, and without a new mintable source of currency, time would erode the economy from under them and tumble into anarchy. The answer to this problem was found deep in the bowels of the earth. Through the vast earthworks that are the underways, excavations were made, and, to the relief of the far-sighted, deposits of iron were uncovered. Carefully audited mining operations began in earnest, and with contracts being given to only the most trusted noble families. As the carts of iron were brought to the surface, a new currency was formed, practical and unyielding like the people. Flecks, shills, grots, and bars began to circulate, all weighable and tradable. Not only was the metal abundant enough to be used by the masses, but rare enough that it retained its value. Iron also had an added benefit: iron could be shaped. Furnished with a Ming-Ting punch from the crown, blacksmiths quickly became centers of commerce. From the shaper's cut of the iron, a blacksmith could take currency and turn it into useful, usable items, or in reverse, take an object of iron and melt it down, recasting it as usable currency. This cemented iron as a store of value and greased the wheels of trade. In this way, a warrior could carry their wealth in the form of a weapon, or a craftsman holds value in his tools. An iron object, no matter the shape, had the value equal to its weight and anchored the value system to the tools that were always in high demand due to their necessity in labor. The blacksmiths' position as fulcrums in commerce allowed them to gain wealth and authority over the decades. They erected fortified buildings around their trade, and before long the word banksmith entered common use as those with iron chose to store it in the forges, the safest building in the city under heavy guard. Few have the abundance of iron or the name to see them entered into the banksmith's books. It is rare for a family to own more than a few tools or a pot made from the precious metal, and shaping is the main thing that will see the common folk inside the forge. As soon as iron enters the common folk's hand, it leaves it again as it moves on to the next person to pay for food, rent, or clothes, the iron continuing ever upwards towards its nobility. When the Deepwood swallowed the lands and dried all the lakes and rivers, it destroyed every natural source of water civilization relied upon, except for one. Deep beneath the land lies a vast network of caverns and tunnels called the underways. Deep in the underways, drinkable water can be found with huge gangs of workers consistently hauling up buckets of murky water to support the city. In addition, the caverns themselves are also used for agriculture and livestock purposes. These underground farmlands contain a naturally occurring algae which is used to nourish livestock. And when combined with the loam found in the caverns, a mixture of soil can support a very limited range of agriculture. Enough at least to keep the populace alive. Periodically, a portion of the livestock are brought up from the underways and driven through the streets to market. The event is called the Butcher's March and is as much a military operation as it is a public celebration. City guardsmen and stationed en masse along the center route, but still it is not uncommon to lose one or two Hefirs to the mob of desperate starving citizens who lunge for the cattle, risking their lives in the hopes of dragging one away to feed hungry mouths. Coursing through the veins of every root and trunk of the Deepwood is a faintly glowing, vicious fluid that occasionally seeps to the surface. Upon contact with the air, this fluid hardens to form clusters and nuggets called amber. Named for its translucent orange appearance, amber is used in nearly every room, hearth, and forge throughout the surviving settlements. The substance burns brightly and is consumed slowly, providing a long-lasting source of light and heat. The discovery of amber was a lifeline to the peoples surrounded by the Deepwood. Although the substance is highly volatile and prone to exploding if mishandled, it still remains the best means of surviving the long winters and dark nights. Lately, there have been rumors of other strangely colored forms of amber being found in the Deepwood possessing unusual power. Few things are feared more than the Deepwood itself. Of all the fears that pervade a civilian's life, none grips the spine or evokes a visceral reaction as witchcraft. Commonly known as Malefice, it is believed a man or woman who can manifest such powers can and will do all manner of evil to those that fall under their gaze. Furnished with such names as blood twisters and dream crawlers, children cower in their beds at the stories told in huddled corners. Those found accused of witchcraft face a variety of cruel fates, the most common of which is swift execution within the depths of Black Rock Fortress. Those unlucky enough to be considered useful to the Inquisition are allowed to keep their lives for a time. Instead, they will find themselves chained to a warden and dragged off into the Deepwood to suffer even worse fate battling nightmares. Not just humans took the oath. Out of the earliest days of the Dark Age, where death and destruction reigned, strode a new type of warrior. As the death toll rose, it became apparent that common militia and guards were not enough to deal with the calamity facing the land. As monsters began to pour from the woods to assail the walls of the last remaining settlements, the survivors needed a force that could meet the foe toe to toe. So the free companies were born. Everyone a survivor of grueling trials, they each take an oath to stand in the breach between humanity and the horrors of the Deepwood. The life of an aspirant is often a short and bloody affair. The aspirant must first survive a day and night's journey into the Deepwood to reach the oath stone that lies at the end of a secret path. If they pass the trial, they will be met by a mysterious hooded figure who will accept their oath. They will then receive the Oathmark brand and be welcomed into their patron company and become known as a 60 Seconder. However, this title heralds a dark fate, as 60 seconds is the average life expectancy of these individuals when they first come into contact with a monster. Due to the extreme lethality of the Deepwood beasts, there are very few veteran companies, and should a 60 Seconder survive their first encounter, there is always another monster that can be heard on the horizon. The reasons one would take the oath are varied. Some swear the oath for fortune, some swear it for vengeance, and then there are some who take the oath because they know what will happen if no one stands in the breach. To formally recognize the free companies, all cities that had been reached by the wire roads banded together to form the Pact. The Pact enshrines the authority of all free company men who bear the Oathmark, allowing them to hunt monsters freely in any city under the Pact and requisition aid in the pursuit. Free companies hunt under contract and are paid handsomely for the monsters they kill. With tales of their exploits spreading quickly, the Oathsworn are looked upon with fear and respect in equal measure. This, combined with the authority of the Oathmark, makes them above the law in many regards. Behind every seat of authority and station of power throughout human society, enigmatic individuals lurk. Known as Watchers, none comprehend to what extent and in what manner this mysterious group wields power. All that is known is that when they speak, kings listen. Wreathed in strangely flowing robes of midnight black, no part of a Watcher form has ever been seen. Both hands and face remain concealed from those brave few who can bear to meet the gaze of darkness. Within the cowls, an aura of unnerving fear flows from their presence. Residing within the great raven spire of Vurum, the Watchers work to unknown ends within high towers guarded by dark iron sentinels. The nature and meaning of these endeavors are largely unknown, but free companies everywhere understand that it is from the Raven Spire that they receive special orders. Unlike contracts entered into with common folk, these contracts cannot be refused. Many people were lost when the Deepwood came, but some survived. All that did are a shadow of their former selves, yet they cling to life, carving out an existence from the most extreme circumstances. Few peoples have done so with such defiant bloody-mindedness as the humans, and now they are the most common group known to reside in the Deepwood. Above and below ground, a great war is taking place within the Deepwood, the War of the Roots. On one side are the Edendri, a most ancient people whose botanical forms exude verdancy and grace. On the other side is the predating Deepwood and twisted beasts that spew from it. The war has gone on for an age, and with every successive generation, more and more of the Edendri homeland is claimed. The Witchwood, as it is known to humans, is a fraction of its former size, yet it still houses the greatest diversity of life ever found. Nursed in groves by mysterious grove maidens, each member of Edendri society can be grown to a purpose and varies in size, cognition, and function, each one finding a place in the great ecosystem. Hailing from a land of fire and ice, the Ursus are born in hardship and forged in the elements. A nomadic people, the Far Striders roam the wilds forever on the hunt. They do so for sustenance, but also for a chance to add to their individual saga. Each Ursus cub comes into the world in nothing but their fur, but as they come to adolescence, they don the Kari, a second skin, their battle armor. The forging of the Kari is a sacred act to the Ursus, a rite of passage that sees not all Ursuses emerge alive. The Ursus must journey through the elements, facing untold horrors to retrieve a precious meteoric metal. Once attained, the Ursus carves thick plates with their own claws and furnishes themselves with a new set of claws, ones now made of metal. Once bonded with their sacred armor, a bear will never again remove it. Starting with only a few plates, the Ursus will seek to add to the armor, but only when they have accumulated enough tales of great feats to immortalize them in the metal. So the saga of each mighty bear grows. Hunts and trials worthy of a saga can be read on each new plate, and even with a lifespan of centuries, only the most ancient bears carry a full suit of meteoric metal. In pursuit of glory and furthering their saga, some few Ursus have roamed as far as the human kingdoms. The humans allow these bears entry through their gates, as they know their presence will mean many dead monsters. Even though the Ursus never take the oath and care little for human affairs, they can often be found in free companies. Journeying with them for a time because they know where the Oathsworn go, worthy hunts are sure to follow. Perched high in their spires, it is indeed rare to find one of the numinal Avi among the lowlanders. Their comings and goings are a mystery, and their nature even more so. To meet an Avi is to experience a strange mix of physical potency and confusing actions, for unlike any other, the Avi can see the future. A society built on prophecy and an understanding of a great foretelling known as the Eschaton. The Avi are forever manipulating and moving events towards the prophecy's fulfillment. As such, the Avi may sometimes seed themselves into free companies and the affairs of other peoples to weave the fates to their ends. Free companies bring many types of weapons into the Deepwood. Some wield steel, others wield magic, but it is only the Avi that wields time. Able to walk the crisscrossing paths of future potential, the Harbingers can pluck the threads of choice and tease out the likely outcome of others' actions. Though not perfect and always open to interpretation, this state of scrying can often glean just the knowledge needed to save a life or land a killing blow. And that's going to conclude the lore video for Oathsworn Into the Deepwood from Shadowborne Games. I touched on many points of lore, but ultimately the Deepwood is a place of mystery. No one knows why it came or why the monsters stalk beneath the canopy. The endless wood contains endless mysteries for those brave enough to enter it. Wanderers must always remember it also contains just as many ways to die. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo!